Okay, so this is one of our more sort of basic heat sealing machines, but it's probably our most popular selling unit. And this particular machine works to the ASTM F2029 standard, which means that it's a controllable heat sealer with temperature of the top jaw and temperature control of the bottom jaw, together with pressure control of the actual jaw pressure, and dwell time, that's the contact time of the sealing jaws. The HSE 3 version has an auto switch, a single shot press to seal switch, power on, power off, and it also can be operated through a foot switch, which is connected to the back. So just looking at the back, you can see we have a power input. In your case, it's going to be 110, 120 volts AC. This is where the foot switch is plugged into. This is our pressure regulator. This actually regulates the incoming air from your clean, dry, compressed air source. Typically around 90 psi is ideal. So this regulates it. We normally have this almost sort of fully on, around about sort of 90% on. To adjust the incoming air pressure, you see this grey top. You lift that up, clicks up, and then it exposes this orange piece underneath, and then you can turn this clockwise or anti-clockwise. So clockwise is to increase the pressure, anti-clockwise is to reduce the pressure. But as I said, we normally have that turned on to about 90%. Once you're happy that it is set to around about there, you just push that down to lock it in place. So at the bottom you have a clear glass, well, in fact it's a clear plastic section which actually collects moisture and oil that you can sometimes get in compressed air. But as I said, ideally what you should be supplying to the machine is clean and dry compressed air. However, if it can't be that, this can collect the moisture and the oil that's in the compressed air, and just beyond there is in fact the filter. So this is a collecting vessel which you can unscrew. This, it's quite tight, but you can unscrew this and empty out the debris that you collect every so often. So this should be checked every sort of 6 months or so. Underneath is another little valve which you can turn to release pressure, or if this is full up with a liquid, waste liquid, you can sometimes open this to allow this to drain out, but of course it will be under pressure, so just be careful. Once that's clean, then just do the knob up tight at the bottom. So this is where the compressed air comes in. It's like a bayonet type fitting. Again, clean, dry air is ideal, and somewhere between 90 to 100 psi pressure supply. This is what we call a delay timer. So this allows you to set a delay between pressing the press to seal button or actuating the foot switch. So it introduces a delay before the jaw moves. So often you can use that to allow the operator to move the sample to the right position before the sealing jaws come down. So this is normally set to seconds, and you just turn the dial to a convenient point. So that's the back panel. Up just above it, you can see you've got some connections for the heaters and the sensors. So we have a lower sensor section and a top sensor section, and the sensors for the top jaw go in here, obviously, and the sensors for the bottom jaw are plugged in here. The heaters are wired with 3-pin plugs and 4-pin plugs, so you can't get them round the wrong way, but 3-pin plugs are always for the top jaw, and the 4-pin plugs are always for the bottom jaw. Okay. This is a Perspex guard, which actually just prevents you from putting your fingers in through the back. So, coming to the front of the machine, you have a Perspex guard, you have a bottom cowling, an emergency stop button, and then the control panel has a temperature controller for the top jaw, a temperature controller for the bottom jaw, and you can turn this on or off. So if you definitely don't need the bottom jaw powered up or indicating a temperature, often that's because you might have a silicon rubber unheated lower jaw, then you can turn it off here through the power switch. This is your pressure regulator, and we tend to calibrate that in bar, so that's a force per unit area pressure, and this is the pressure regulator that adjusts the pressure. So when we power it up, I'll show you what that does. This is our dwell timer. So the dwell timer is measuring the actual dwell of the jaws when they're in contact. An auto switch means that this works in conjunction with the delay timer at the back, and when pressed it will continuously seal, and I'll show you how that works. A one-shot press to seal button, the green button, works in a similar way to a one-shot press to seal with the foot switch, and you generally, with the foot switch, you dab it like that. You don't leave your foot on it, because otherwise that will try to continuously seal. So you just dab it once, remove your foot. So powering up, you have a green and a red button. So obviously the green button is to turn the unit on, and obviously it will turn on only when the emergency stop button is up, and it works when you press this down, it slightly turns it, so you press it down like so to shut the power off, but to release it you just turn it slightly to clockwise motion and it pings up. So turning back on again. So we're just going through a boot up sequence here, and the temperature controller will show a temperature of the current temperature of the sealing jaw, and obviously here there's a zero set point, so we need to enter that, and I'll show you how we do that in a second. Your pressure is again reading 0, but to increase that you turn the pressure regulator, and as I said, this is calibrated in bar, so currently we're reading 1.16 bar. So depending on the customer's specification, we set that to a level that they want to seal at. And by the way, just a very quick conversion. There are 14.5 psi to 1 bar. So if the customer wants to display psi, then the equivalent is times whatever value you have on here by 14.5. So this particular timer has been set up in minutes. We normally set this to seconds, and in fact when we supply a machine we set this up in seconds, but if we do need to change it, we see a mode button. We press the mode button in and hold it for 3 seconds, and then we get this timer, T-I-M-R. So if you need to change it once you're actually set up on the minutes display, use the end rocker button to change this to seconds, and this also changes the decimal point to the position you want. So if we go to seconds there, we can put the decimal point in to 1 significant digit, 2 significant digits, and so on. We normally set it up to 2 significant digits, which is hundredths of a second. Once you're happy with that, then you press the mode button again and hold it in, and then it reverts back to seconds. So now you're displaying 0.00 seconds. To change the seconds, you touch the rocker switches under the digit that you require. So in our case, we're going to go to whole digits, so that's 1 second there, 2 seconds, and you know that usually is set up to suit the customer's needs. So temperature again has already been set up and auto-tuned. So in order to change the temperature to the setting that the customer requires, you press the star button in, and then you have an up or a down button. So if we press the up button to the temperature you require, the longer you leave your finger on it, the faster it gets. So let's just say 120 degrees C. And if you are using the bottom jaw, you turn it on here, and again you do the same thing for your set point. So change that to 120 degrees C as well. Now we do tend to display in centigrade, but if you do want to display in Fahrenheit, then there is a way of changing this. But if the customer does require that, let me know, and then I can run through that with you fairly quickly. So once we have set our temperature, this particular version in actual fact is just a heated top jaw. So if you're worrying why this says fail, it's because we haven't got a sensor plugged into the back, but that is usual in that sort of instance. But the top jaw is heating up to the set temperature, and once we're there, then with the correct pressure set and the correct dwell time, we can begin to make a seal. In your case, Tom, Zip Pack actually have a set of special sealing jaws. So they too have 2 temperature controllers, but they are only heating the top jaw. But the way that they have their machine set up is for the top jaw they have zones, a little bit similar to the HSX 400 series. So they're using half of the top jaw to be controlled by the zone 1 or the left side controller, and the other half, which we're calling zone 2, is controlled by the bottom jaw or the bottom controller. So I think we've changed this to read left and right on your instrument. So we are controlling just the top jaw, but with the 2 zones. So bear that in mind when you're actually showing the customer how to use the equipment. So once we're ready, this will stabilize, and we can then use the press to seal button to make a seal, like so. So it's a one-shot press to seal, like so. With the auto turned on, it will continuously cycle like it is now. So it's timing out to 2 seconds dwell time, but the delay time at the back I showed you earlier can be adjusted so that you have more time in between seals, like so. So it's getting longer between seals. Okay, so once you're finished with the auto, just turn that off, and then it goes back to 1 shot. And the other way of operating the machine is through the foot switch, and as I said, just a touch with the foot switch, and then it makes the seal. So with this machine you can change the sealing jaws. Often we supply the machine as standard with flat sealing jaws, and that can be heated top jaw, heated bottom jaw, or as in this arrangement you can have a heated top jaw with a silicone rubber lower jaw, which is unheated. Although we still supply 2 temperature controllers, one for the top jaw, one for the bottom jaw, you can still use this so that you only heat the top jaw, and generally in that case you have an unheated silicone rubber lower jaw. So, so if you need to gain access to the sealing jaws, you have to take this Perspex guard off, and you can see here that in the corner is a power safety switch. Once that is pulled out, it will shut the power off completely to the machine. So that allows you to then get access, and even better access if you then remove this lower cowling. This lifts up like so, and then you can see the sealing jaws exposed. The sealing jaws are actually mounted onto a U-bracket, and in the U-bracket you have a single shoulder bolt, which is fastened at the rear with a wing nut and some spring washers and things. So you have to undo the wing nut and take the nut off and the washers and so on, to remove the top jaw. Likewise on this side as well. So once you do that, make sure that the jaw doesn't just drop, you know, put something in between, something soft like a cloth or something, so that it drops onto that. Likewise with the bottom jaw, if this is a silicone rubber which is unheated, but if you need to change this to the heated jaw, if the customer ordered one, then same thing, undo the wing nuts, take these bolts out, both sides, and then the bottom jaw lifts away. So replace the alternative sealing jaws in exactly the same way. Here there is a micro switch. So the micro switch actually controls when the dwell timer is initiated. So as the sealing jaw comes down, this will move, this bar here hits the switch and moves down with it, and as it coincides with the hitting of the lower jaw, it will start the dwell time. So if you need to make any fine adjustments with the dwell time, you can do it with this arm by sort of bending it, one way or the other. A little bit crude, but it's very effective. So apart from that, that really is the workings of the machine. If you do need to work on the machine, some typical tools that you will need to take with you would be Allen keys, and don't forget that these are metric Allen keys, so because all our screws are metric. An adjustable spanner, a screwdriver, maybe some pliers, but also quite important, make sure that you have these keys and magnetic switches for when you need to work on a machine. Also, a good tip, sometimes the machine might be supplied with Teflon coating on the jaw, but if not, and you have a problem with the material sticking to the jaw, you can actually recommend using something like this. This is self-adhesive PTFE tape, which you cut to length and stick onto the sealing jaw, and it's very effective for stopping the material from sticking to the jaw.